Hello everyone, how's it going? Welcome to this very important Wild Rift video. In this video, we're going to be talking about kind of the state of Wild Rift in general and what we've had recently in terms of Wild Rift, in terms of matchmaking, hackers and cheaters, balancing, and everything like that as well. We're going to mainly talk about matchmaking in this video since we just got a tweet recently from Papa Smoothie. David, you might recognize his name from the patch preview videos. He did a tweet recently talking about matchmaking, and I'll show you that later, and I'll show you what he explains, and I'll explain it in a bit more detail. But before that, let's kind of reverse back in the story ever so slightly. If you haven't seen posts on Reddit, posts on social media, posts everywhere on streams, everything like that, the big thing at the moment in Wild Rift is this whole like inting strategy. It's the big drama that's happening at the moment, if you'd call it drama. It's a big hot topic at the moment in Wild Rift. Now, this whole inting strategy was basically a situation where you would place someone in the Baron lane like Sion, Trendemir, Garen, someone that can just split push. And all you would do is you would just try and take as many towers as possible in that lane, and you would stay as far away from the team fights as possible. And what that does is that gives you high damage ratio, but it basically gives you 0 KDA. Now, a big thing at the moment is that a player called Mert is currently rank 1 in the EU servers doing this strategy. You can see here, this is his profile. He's like 9 or 8 marks ahead of anyone else using this strategy. You can see here with the strategy that he is doing. I'm not too sure. I'm guessing he doesn't have his match history open. You can see his win rates at the moment, 70% with Sion, 90% with Trendemir, and then also Garen as well. And then he has a few other, you know, champions that he can play other times in the meantime. And if you look at his stats as well, this is basically his situation in terms of his stats. So we look at the current season and we look at his stats. So you can see the graph. The graph is very skewed towards, you know, damage taken and also damage to towers. You can see here 0.7 KDA, but then he still has a decent amount of damage to towers and obviously damage taken. Now, what this does with the current, I guess, system in the game was that the game was not only taking your wins and losses towards the matchmaking that you were getting, but it's also taking KDA. It was also taking healing percentage, damage taken, lane assignments, loads and loads of different things, which I'll get into a little bit later on into the tweet. But I just wanted to show you this, just to show you that this you know, was a thing that was very, very high on the radar in terms of the community, and obviously the devs realized as well. Now, some people are for some reason saying that I was not on the same page and I didn't voice my word about this kind of issue. In a way, I've got a different stance when it comes to issues to Wild Rift. I'm not going to be making a video which does a clickbait title. Oh, here's the easiest way to climb in Wild Rift. Oh, here's the most broken strategy to play in Wild Rift. Because, hey, if I do that sort of promotional content, if I say like, oh, here, go into a game, play Sion, int in Baron lane, and you'll win more games. If I promote that strategy, more players are going to do that, which equals more players are going to be quitting because it's not very fun to play with or even play against. And hey, that means less player base, which is something that we don't want at all. That's my stance. So instead, I took it internally. I have right contacts because I'm part of the league partner program. So I took it internally. I explained the situation internally to Riot. Obviously the community did a big thing as well with posting a lot on Reddit, posting a lot on social media and everything as well. But I got a different stance. You know, I'm not going to publicly say like, oh, this strategy is broken, everything's going on. And to be honest, it was getting a bit annoying as well. I was seeing so many posts. I'm just trying to enjoy the game. I'm trying to enjoy going onto Reddit and, you know, seeing some plays, looking at some posts, replying to some posts, social media as well. And when you're scrolling through Reddit and Twitter and everything, you're just seeing the same post about inting Sion over and over again. It gets a bit boring. It gets a bit repetitive. Now, I respect everyone that did it. You know, it definitely helped with obviously the devs and everything. But again, I'm not going to make a video which is something like, oh, play this broken strategy, when it's not really a fun strategy. And also it doesn't make the rest of the players' experience very fun as well, which the best thing I want from this game is more players, more people coming in, more players that I can help, and more people to play the game and watch esports and things like that as well. So yeah, that's my stance on it. I did have a thing where I did think that there are other aspects of the game that there are problems with. I don't think it is just matchmaking. Obviously, matchmaking was a problem. There are many other things and many other problems that are in the game at the moment. For example, a Scion and a Trendemir should not be able to walk towards a tower with Hullbreaker and Demolish and one-shot that tower without any minions nearby. Now, again, that's the problem with matchmaking, because obviously you're far away from the map, and KDA had an example. But again, that's a problem that shouldn't be in the game. Comeback mechanic, another thing. You know, when you're dying so much in lane, when you're giving so much gold over to the enemy, the strategic comeback mechanic would proc earlier, which means your team would get more gold if you get more towers. You'll get more gold if you get towers, which means you can get more gold, which means you can split push and actually be ahead in gold over the opponent, even if you're playing this int strategy. There are more things to just matchmaking. You know, I think players just blaming matchmaking and not looking at the bigger picture was probably in the wrong. Obviously, I'm not saying completely in the wrong, but there's definitely some more details into that instead of just the matchmaking itself. But anyway, I wanted to show you this profile anyway. I'll go into obviously more detail with that and everything as well. Then let's take a look at kind of where Wild Rift is taking the game right now. Now, this was a post by Medler, who is the League of Head studio in League of Legends TFT and also Wild Rift. He did a post a while ago. This was round about the end of last year, saying that the development team is moving over to China. This got a lot of big backlash from the entire community. I myself as well, you know, I knew a lot of people personally actually from the American team, especially because I met pretty much all of them icons. I met people like Maddie. I don't remember N-Step being there. Papa Smoothie was there as well. David was there, and a couple of other developers that was over. Obviously, the esports guy was also there as well. Loads of people were there in terms of the development team. Now, obviously, they've moved all on now. They've moved on to you know, other places in Riot and things like that. So I'm happy they're still part of Riot. And obviously, it got a lot of backlash that Riot was moving over to Shanghai. Overall, I actually think the change has been pretty good for the game. There's actually been a lot of things that I'm going to praise them at the moment for, which I'll talk about in all these sort of sections in the video that I'm thinking of. But things like getting rid of hackers, things like bug fixes. I mean, I've never seen Wild Rift be so proactive with bug fixes ever. Like, since the game come out, there was a recent bug with Thresh where his hook was like twice the range. That was fixed within a few hours, if not a day, like within a day. The bug with the invisible Malphite with the skin, fixed within a day. These bug fixes that weren't like part of the game and fixed so quickly, I'm not too sure if we would have had the same. I mean, we probably might have had the same thing, but I remember years ago when we had this bug with Lulu and Janna with the double shielding. Some of you might remember that. It's a bug like 2 or 3 years ago now. That took a long time to fix. I think they had to get to a situation where they had to ban the champions in game because they weren't able to fix the bug fixes that quickly. They didn't have to ban Thresh at all. They just fixed it within the next couple of hours. So overall, I think it's actually been pretty good. Obviously, they mentioned that the next couple of patches is going to be pretty slow, like this year and early 2024, but they're hoping to, you know, pick things up later on this year, moving on into next year. Then we had a situation where unfortunately a lot of the riots, sorry for the flashbang, I don't think I can use dark mode, sorry, flashbang for a moment. There was also a thing where the Riot some of the Riot developers, not just in Wild Rift but in many different games, League, Valorant, Teamfight Tactics, Legends of Runeterra, a lot of them did get the kind of removed from their job. They basically all lost their jobs, which is really, really sad. I would not want that for anyone at all. I would not want them to lose their jobs. And there was a few people personally that I, you know, reached out to make sure that they were still in Riot. There's a few of them that unfortunately lost their jobs and a few of them that stayed, but everyone was affected in Riot, and it's an awful time. And there's also like many other things as well, like Blizzard and Microsoft, I think, also removing a lot of employees. So it's a weird time for gaming. But anyway, I'm going off topic. Main reason I'm showing you this is because the interesting thing about this is that Riot themselves say that our vision for the future is bold, and our commitment to our core live games, League of Legends, Valorant, Teamfight Tactics, and Wild Rift. I did a tweet about this as well, and it got kind of an interesting reaction where Riot themselves are calling Wild Rift a core live game, which means that they are focusing more on Wild Rift than anything else. And they want to put more effort into Wild Rift as well. Obviously, it's a bit interesting now because the dev team is mainly over in China. But them calling Wild Rift a core game was kind of interesting. I don't know where they're going to be taking the game. I don't know. The problem is we don't really know what the future holds for the game. They keeping a lot of things quiet. Obviously, there's this big thing about opening games to more of the community and more around the world. There's obviously the console release, esports, things like that as well. There's a lot of things that are up in the air at the moment that not a lot of people know about. So hopefully we should be getting more details about this. But as I mentioned, in terms of the development team at the moment over in China, I talked about the bug fixes. We also got a news page recently as well about how they're updating their update to hackers and cheaters. We've been seeing hackers pop up here and there, and some of you might remember on stream I also had a hacker on one of my games, or a cheater or map hacker, where they basically were playing Lux and they knew where everyone else was on the map at the same time. And hey, they've identified 4,000 players and they've used these hack accounts and they've all been permabanned. Again, a step in the right direction that I think is extremely good for the game and is really, really good to make sure that players cannot exploit these things, because players probably thought, oh, Riot doesn't care about the Wild Rift. I can just hack in the game. I can just use cheats and whatever and get away with it and easily be able to climb. Yeah, unfortunately, you can't get away with that, buddy. But again, a really, really good change. Now let's talk about the big elephant in the room. This is a tweet not so long ago, just within the past, couple of hours. From Papa Smoothie, again, a guy called David who does the patch previews. He's one of the only developers that are left over in LA, and I believe it's in LA in America. Now, this is all about the rank season and also about the matchmaking in general. And I'm actually really surprised how much detail he went into with matchmaking and what they're trying to fix in the game. So let's talk over this and let's kind of explain it in a little bit more detail. Well, as much as I can anyway. With the most recent rank season coming to a close, I wanted to address one of the hot topics around matchmaking, specifically around artificially depressing your KDA, which is what I was explaining at the start of the video, where a lower KDA will get you better teammates, and inting was a strategy where you could climb. First and foremost, I want to make clear that encouraging players to try and win is fundamental to a goal of ours, and all of our supporting systems should encourage you to win. However, we are seeing edge cases where players attempt to game the system. I guess that's actually what it's supposed to say. I think it's supposed to say gain the system and find more favorable matches by manipulating their KDA. There are two edge cases where this has been manifested. Players who trade their life to accrue advantages in other areas of the game, such as tower damage or pressure in other aims. Looking at you, Sion. This is what I was talking about at the start of the game. I didn't know this was also a thing as well. Players who actively try to ruin their KDA in a winning situation so that they could get a more favorable match in the subsequent games. So this basically means that if you're already in a winning situation, you know that you're going to win, you int a few times, and then you get a better matchmaking in the next game because your KDA is not that good in the previous one. Hopefully that makes sense. Basically, lower KDA would most of the time mean better teammates, which obviously means better matchmaking for you in general compared to the enemy team. And this also means that if you have higher KDA, so players that have, like, I would say 6 and above KDA, this would mean that you would get a lot less skilled teammates. Like, the game would try and balance itself out. Now, he goes into more detail here about this other situations as well. There's other variants as well. But basically, if you had a higher KDA, you would get lower KDA and lower win rate teammates, which obviously means that you have to try and 1v9 the game and try and carry the game by yourself. I said we don't want to dictate how you try to win, as we believe that it's healthy to have a variety of paths to victory. Things like split pushing shouldn't be out of the game completely. I completely agree with that. I don't think split pushing is really a thing in the moment, like a valuable thing to do and a good thing to do in general. But the only way that people were able to do it was pushing out down a tower and things like that. We want to step in to help address rank system manipulation. Wild Rift matchmaking. Okay, this is where it gets interesting. So the Wild Rift matchmaking system uses an updated algorithm that incorporates a multitude of game behaviors, such as winning/losing, which should be the main reason as to your your win rate overall and as to the matchmaking overall. You know, the game should balance the win losses on every one of your teams. So for example, you have a player as a 45% win rate, the enemy team should also have a player that's around 45% win rate. You have 70% win rate, someone else should also have a 70% win rate. That wasn't really the case. You know, take the rank 1 player, for example, 80% win rate, but because he had a lower KDA, he wasn't getting matched up against players that had a 80% win rate. And also his teammates were also better overall. Even if they had lower KDA, lower win rates, sorry, their KDAs would be better, which means they're better players overall. You know, everyone knows that win rate is kind of a factor in terms of like knowing how good or bad a player is, but KDA is definitely a bigger factor. But it also took, in fact, KDA, lane assignments, which is interesting, team fight participation, damage taken percentage, healing percentage, and many others. So all these factors that came into the game, all these different stats that you see from the game, tower damage, probably team fight participation, which is another big one, which obviously is another reason why this Instinct Scion strategy worked, because you had low T fight percentage and you also had low KDA. So it means it would give you teammates that have a higher KDA, a higher team fight participation, and probably around the same win rate, if not a lower win rate overall. So that is why this inting strategy worked, was in terms of the matchmaking in general. And again, it didn't really benefit a lot of players that were on like 55% win rate but had like a 10 KDA, for example. It would actually mean less value for them because they had more of a KDA. Our goal is to reward all the positive in-game behaviors, and KDA is only one of these factors. I personally think that it should not only, but mostly like 80% of it revolve around winning or losing. Now, people will say that, oh, okay, if you just spam a bunch of games and you'll be able to do this with the whole fortitude thing and everything like that. That's just how the game works. The game has fortitude. The game has ways in which you can get loss prevention. That's been a thing since day one. I guess always been a thing since day one. There's no way they're going to get rid of that. It's just always going to be a thing. I don't think people should really complain about that too much. I think that's the only way that the game is going to work in a more casual basis. Adjustment we are rolling out with the next patch, which is what I was quite excited with the next patch notes that are coming out tomorrow, will look to increase the weight of winning or losing the game relative to other factors, which is what I was just saying. You know, winning or losing a game should have more of an impact in terms of other factors. Now, what this means for someone like Mert, for example, who was able to climb to Grandmaster, this guy is sitting on 80% win rate with a 0.2 KDA. So at the moment, the 80% win rate doesn't really mean too much. The 0.2 KDA in the team fight participation, you're going to get players that have better KDA than the rest of the enemy team, and also better team fight participation, and the win rate is obviously going to be around balanced. But now he is going to get players, that player Mert is going to get players now with a very, very low win rate. So his win rate is on like 80%. He's in like the high epsilon in terms of win rate. So now to try and balance the game and try and get it back to that 50% win rate for both the for the ally team and also for the enemy team, he's going to have to get multiple players that are probably below 50% win rate. So his team now is not going to be able to carry him whilst he's running it down with Scion in the side lane. Same on the other side as well. If the other side, you're either going to get a case on the other side where the enemy team is also going to have a really, really high win rate player and the rest of them are going to be lower, or they're all going to be very balanced around that. And obviously KDA is not going to be that much big of an issue. So it's a big change for the developers to actually do this and actually take that into account. Now your game's outcome will be more significantly determined for future matchmaking accuracy. At the end of the day, consistently supporting your team towards victory is the best way to climb, and trying to officially depress your KDA will be detrimental. So yeah, basically they're trying to get rid of this whole inter-Scion strategy and things like that. Again, I think that there are more problems to the game rather than this whole like negative KDA thing, inter-Scion strategy thing, etc. But it's a great step in the right direction. And also they said there are more improvements we are looking into to improve your overall rank journey. We plan on being more timely in our response to your feedback and updates around matchmaking in the future. Lastly, we want to thank the players who are thoughtfully voicing their opinions and beliefs back to us. It's tremendously important to us to evaluate our performance. etc, etc, etc. I did my reply as well, and he also said, hope to see you cast in person. I hope so one day. I really do hope so one day. I really hope Wild Rift Esports comes back. Interesting enough, SpiderX, if you don't know who SpiderX is, they're a person that posts a lot about just Riot Games in general, does a bunch of stuff in terms of updates and everything. They did a post saying, are you going to be on Twitter more? I'd be nice to be have more Wild Rift comms since all the devs are now in Shanghai. That's one negative thing that I would say with the developers being in Shanghai now, is that we don't get a lot of communication from Riot in terms of English anyway. And Papa's Movie himself said, posting something on the 30th still counts the New Year's resolution, right? A goal for both myself and the team this year is to be more active on comms and provide more visibility to the thought process behind our actions. It's great. You know, overall, I think this is great. You know, it got, you know, a good load of feedback. You know, some people like Royal, who's obviously a very, very competitive player and wants to try and climb to the highest rank possible, says that there also are some problems with legendary queue, which I agree with. I think legendary queue is still a separate queue, and I think a big problem with legendary queue at the moment is that we just don't have the player base to have a very competitive legendary queue. Obviously the rewards are not too great. I don't really like the rewards in legendary queue. They basically don't incentivize people to actually play legendary queue. That's a big issue. Obviously, a big issue is also player base. We don't have enough players in Europe, also in America, to actually fulfill legendary queue's needs. Whereas somewhere like China, for example, which is like the second most grossing game in China and probably one of the top 5 most played mobile games over in China, of course you're going to have a bunch of players that are reaching legend rank. Of course you're going to have a bunch of players that are, you know, of course it's going to be a very competitive region because of the player base. Again, that's the reason, that's one of the reasons why I think the legendary queue is not working. You know, if you think of early seasons of the legendary queue, season 1 legendary queue, season 2 a legendary queue, it was great. Everyone was climbing the legendary queue, everyone had a bunch of fun. We was getting so much you know, fun content with like all these competitive players and everything like that as well. But unfortunately, them players that were trying to reach the highest ranks have unfortunately left the game. You think of all the pro players in Europe, no more esports means all these pro players that left. You know, you think of like Rix.gg, no one plays on there anymore. Random left the game. Doom left the game. Clue left the game. Jabin left the game, who is snitch in the mid lane. Seven left the game. I can think of other teams as well. Dawn very rarely plays the game. Swess left the game. Lonely Kid left the game. All these pro players that were reaching the highest peaks in legendary queue and they were actually climbing to legendary queue have left the game because there's no benefit for them to play the game because there's no more esports. Again, that's a kind of a whole different topic, but that's for me is one of the reasons why legendary queue is not as competitive as it was before. Yeah, Keith's put an interesting point as well. Your game outcomes will be significantly determined for future macro and after. So are good players still expected 1v1 every game then? Do bad players still have a much easier ride? I think it all depends on like the win rates now, which is going to be quite interesting. I think the win rates are going to be more balanced, which is going to be nice. So you're not going to have, say for example, yeah, you have like, say for example, at the moment with the current matchmaker system, you have a 55% win rate and you have a 7 KDA. You've got a high KDA and a decently high win rate. It's going to put you with, sorry if I offend anyone, it's going to put you with really, really bad players. You know, if you have a high KDA and a high win rate, it's going to put you with extremely bad players. But now because it's more to do with the win rate, which obviously 57% win rate is not as impactful as a 7.0 KDA, for example, because 7.0 KDA meant you were getting players with lower KDA. The players that I've been getting in my games have like 3-4 KDAs, and some of them even have like 3 or 4 KDAs with like 60% win rate. And I'm like, how are these players getting such low KDA and higher win rates? Well, here you go. So I hope this balances things out. But yeah, mostly it's all positive feedback. You know, people saying W and things like that as well. It's definitely a celebratory moment for us. Very rewarding seeing this sellers of map packs get angry customers wanting their money back. I love this. I love that he's being more interactive now. I mean, this is what we need, right? This is what the community means. I think overall this is a great step in the right direction. I've probably gone a bit overboard than probably what I should have in this video, but I wanted to explain this in a little bit more detail and how this is a positive thing. You know, this is what I want to promote from my channel. I don't want to promote saying, oh, this is the craziest way to win games, just play Scion and go 0-20 and win games. I don't want to promote that sort of shit. That's not what I'm for. I have a website where I have a ton of builds, where I help the community with a ton of builds on the website, that I want to try and help people. I want to try and spread positivity about the game. I want to try and grow this game and help this game, because I've been playing this game now for 3 years and this game is my life. So, you know, for me, I don't want to spread negativity towards the game. I will do what I can internally in terms of contacting Riot in terms of problems, you know, bugs and things like that as well. I always contact my Riot contact to be able to, so they know about bugs or patches being released earlier than what they should be, etc, etc. So, you know, I'm still doing my thing. I might not do it publicly, but I'm still doing my own thing. Like I said, the reason I don't do it publicly is that I have a lot of new people that come into my channel in terms of from the website, especially, you know, promoting the website is such a big thing for me. So yeah, that's basically everything. Yeah, hopefully you enjoyed this. Sorry that I just blabbed on for 25-30 minutes. Let me know what you think down in the comments. I'm really curious what you will think about the comments. I don't think this will fix everything about matchmaking. I still think there are probably problems with matchmaking, but again, they said that they're working on more improvements for matchmaking for the future. So a step in the right direction. Hackers gone, bug fixes being happened more. Patches also have been really, really good lately in terms of balance patches. A lot more changes have been happening in terms of items. You think of hot fixes as well. Hot fixes have been a lot more regular. Hotfix nerf to Lux before, to Zyra, hotfix buff to some of the new items. So there's a lot of positivity that I think that we should be promoting as content creators about this game, instead of promoting things like, hey, let's play Scion, go 0-20 and, you know, basically make everyone's experience a living hell. But yeah, anyway, appreciate you all for watching the video. Again, let me know what you think down in the comments. I always read the comments. I always reply to the comments as well. So yeah, appreciate you all. See you all in the next video. Take care. Peace.